I honestly don't think the Killer Tomatoes title is quite as stupid as the people who judge these movies by their titles. I mean, while you're at it, you might as well judge Dude, Where's My Car or Big Ass Spider. Yeah, those movies were totally meant to be taken seriously. Martin Scorsese wishes that he could achieve that level of high drama.
Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
Return of the Killer Tomatoes follows a couple of guy idiots who team up with a female idiot who is secretly a tomato in disguise to stop an evil scientist from ruling the world with evil tomato Nazis. Citizen Kane ain't got shit on this. There's this YouTuber I watch whose channel is called YourMovieSucks.org. I honestly love watching his funny reviews. I think he is very hilarious and also very intelligent, and he doesn't care for Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, which is fine. I mean, we all have our opinions, and this guy is particularly picky with movies. However, his main criticism of that film is that apparently the only joke throughout the entire picture is that tomatoes are attacking people, and tomatoes don't usually do that, which is not true. There are quite a few other jokes going on. And I found Return of the Killer Tomatoes to be much more hilarious and entertaining. In fact, this is quite possibly the most underrated comedy I've ever seen. This movie just constantly hits you with joke after joke after joke. Every once in a while there's a joke that falls flat, but then soon after that there's another one that works. At the beginning, I kind of love how the theme song of this movie is mainly comprised of throwbacks to the original theme song, which misleads the audience into thinking, oh god, this is going to be one of those comedy sequels that's just the same recycled shit over again, which thankfully it isn't. While I do like the first movie, one thing that bothers me about it is that it doesn't really have much of a plot. It just feels more like a bunch of sketches stitched together to make a movie. As wild and strange as Return of the Killer Tomatoes is, it does at least have a cohesive narrative structure that pretty much anyone can follow. Also, something that even the filmmakers themselves criticized about the first movie is how there was no solid villain until the very end of the movie. Just some random person comes out and says, hey, I'm the bad guy. This movie gives you a villain in the form of this very over-the-top mad scientist who feels like a cartoon brought into the third dimension. One thing that I like a lot more than the villain in this movie is the group of heroes. They are a lot funnier. I mean, for example, this is one of the earliest acting roles of George Clooney, who today wants to disown this movie, but I don't understand why, because he was hilarious in this. He was just the perfect mix of charming and goofy. As much as George Clooney steals the show, however, the main character of the story is his best friend, who is just a complete loser, but he's kind of a lovable loser, and I love the fact that he's so terrible at communicating with women that the only woman in the world who's able to fall in love with him is actually a tomato. The Tomato Woman is hilarious too. She's not just in this movie to look good, she's practically every misogynist's wet dream, and when she approaches this guy and starts telling him all these things that he's most likely fantasized about hearing from a beautiful woman, he is completely disarmed and doesn't know what to do with himself. Some of my favorite jokes in the movie, however, don't start up until about halfway through. I'm not going to give too much away, but essentially there's a point where the movie breaks the fourth wall, and then afterwards there's this running gag that pretty much never gets old. Every single time it's brought up, it makes me laugh. One thing about this movie that might disappoint some people is that the title tends to be a little bit misleading, with the exception of some flashback scenes going back to the first movie. There aren't really any moments in this where you get to see someone being attacked by tomatoes. As I've strongly hinted at, the mad scientist in this movie is turning tomatoes into people, and the scenes where characters are being threatened by the tomato Nazi soldiers are about as close to killer tomato action as you're going to get. There is one tomato in the movie that moves around by itself, and it's almost as much of a show stealer as George Clooney. Honestly, it's probably the most adorable character you're going to see in a horror movie, which is a phrase that I use very loosely in this case. In the end, Return of the Killer Tomatoes is not scary in the slightest. However, it is the funniest of the movies that I've chosen for this month. If you're looking to just watch something goofy for Halloween, or if you're looking for something that you could possibly watch with the kids as long as they're allowed to watch shows like The Simpsons, because there are some sex jokes in this, then this film definitely comes recommended. And that's all I've got to say about it. I hope you all have a good one.